Well, welcome back once again, church family. This is our PM version of Thursday. I'm going to start out with one thing that just to finish up what we were doing in the morning version, and that was the establishment of the Passover. They were going to celebrate the Passover, so they were, getting ready for the Passover. It has one verse, but I'm going to read two verses here. When evening had come, and it's Matthew 26:20. He sat down with the 12. Now, I'm going to say a statement after this, which is the next verse, and that goes into a completely different story, which we're not going to go there, but we'll just kind of talk a little bit about it. Now, as they were eating, he said, "Surely, I say to you, one of you will betray me." Can you imagine their faces? Can you imagine you're sitting with Jesus and you're about ready to have this wonderful Passover meal? And all of a sudden he says, "One of you will betray me." Of course, they were sorrowful, the scriptures say. And as it goes on, it says, "The Son of Man indeed goes as is written of him. But woe to that man by whom the Son of Man is betrayed. It would have been good for that man if he had never been born." We know who that was. We know that his punishment that he has is probably the most harsh punishment in a place called hell. And, it's sad, but there had to be somebody that didn't believe in Jesus and wasn't willing to follow him, and that was Judas. We move on, though, to our next part, and it's the prayer in Gethsemane. And when we move on to the prayer of Gethsemane, we kind of start verse 30, and let me read that for you. "And when they had sung a hymn, they went out on the Mount of Olives." So that's where they're going to. Then you go down to 36, and Jesus, in the meantime, predicts the Peter's denial and what's going to happen to those disciples because of whether they would follow him or not, and what would happen once the shepherd has been striked. And we're going to talk about that on Sunday morning too. In the prayer in the garden is this: "Then Jesus came with them to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to the disciples, 'Sit here while I go and pray over there.' And he took with him Peter and the two sons of Zebedee, and he began to be sorrowful and deeply distressed. Then he said to him, 'My soul is exceedingly sorrowful, even to death. Stay here and watch with me.'" Verse 38, that was. 39, he went a little farther and fell on his face and prayed, saying, "Oh, my Father, if it's possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not as I will, but as you will." Verse 40, then he came to the disciples and found them sleeping, and said to Peter, "What, could you not watch with me for 1 hour? Watch and pray, lest you enter into temptation. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak." Again, a second time he went away, verse 42, prayed, saying, "Oh, my Father, if this cup cannot pass away from me unless I drink it, your will be done." And he came and found them asleep again, for their eyes were very heavy. So he left them, went again and prayed the third time, saying the words. Then he came to his disciples and said, "Are you still sleeping and resting? Behold, the hour is at hand, and the Son of Man is being betrayed into the hands of sinners. Rise up, let us be going. See, my betrayer is at hand." I would have not wanted to be one of those disciples at that point, because I think that I would be. I think that even though I love Jesus and follow Jesus, I know sometimes when you're tired, it's hard to stay up. And they were having a hard time. They wanted to be there for their brother. They wanted to be there for Jesus. They loved him. They followed him. Peter said that he would fight to the end. They really loved him. But sometimes with you and I, it is really hard because of this human flesh. Jesus was kind of experiencing that right now, though. He is God in the flesh. But as he's thinking about this, he's having a hard time with what's going to happen. Not that he doesn't want, not willing to happen. but the human side of him is having a little bit of a hard time with. So he goes once and prays and comes back. And the first time he said, if this cup may pass. Second time when he says it, he said, if this cup can pass, and if it can't pass, then your will be done. And he knew what he had to do, and he knew what was going to happen. And he knew that this was the only way for you and I to be able to be set free from our sin and to be able to go to heaven someday. He knew that. And he was going to obey, and he was going to do the Father's will, which was the Father's will for him to be die on that cross for us. Because the Father knew that if he dies, that he would get buried and that he would rise again the third day. And that would take care of our sins. So that's what happened. So we're thankful that's what happened. And that's our PM reading for right now. And we'll get back to you tomorrow with our Friday reading.